We call on the Ugandan authorities to immediately release Kiza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, Aaron Kiza, and others who are unlawfully detained.
Kiza Besigye's health has seriously deteriorated after nearly a week.
That we do call each and every person and invite every Kenyan and all persons of interest to join us in a march to the Ugandan High Commission in Nairobi and the National Assembly on 21st of February to present a petition for justice for Dr. Kiza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, and Wakili Aaron Kiza.
We, the undersigned organizations, condemn the militarization of justice in Uganda and the escalating government repression ahead of the 2026 general elections. We call on the Ugandan authorities to immediately release Kiza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, Aaron Kiza, and others who are unlawfully detained. The abduction and rendition of Kiza Besigye and Haj Obeid Lutale blatantly violates international human rights law and the principles of extradition treaties. The conviction of lawyer Aaron Kiza by General Court-Martial for contempt of court and sentencing to 9 months imprisonment without a fair trial is brazen targeting of a lawyer in the line of duty. On 16th November 2024, Kiza Besigye and Haj Obeid Lutale were abducted from Nairobi, Kenya, adding to the growing and worrying trends of transnational repression in Kenya, where foreign critics from countries including Ethiopia, South Sudan, Tanzania, Turkey, and Uganda have been abducted in Kenya. The Kenyan government must take action to stop this repression. Further, the Kenyan government must investigate and prosecute those responsible and ensure full reparation to the victims and their families.
Accordingly, we call on the Ugandan authorities to, 1, respect the Supreme Court decision and immediately free Kiza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, lawyer Aaron Kiza, and other unlawfully detained persons. 2, that the Ugandan authority to take immediate action to prevent any grave harm to or loss of life to Kiza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, lawyer Aaron Kiza, and all other persons who have been detained. 3, that the Ugandan authorities to promptly, thoroughly, impartially, effectively, independently, transparently review all cases of civilians on trial in the General Court-Martial and immediately cease prosecution of civilians in military courts and release all individuals found to be arbitrarily deprived of their liberties in Ugandan civilian and military prisons. Number 4 is our call that the Ugandan authority to promptly, thoroughly, impartially, independently, transparently, and effectively investigate death threats against Kiza Besigye by President Yoweri Museveni's son, that is Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is the Chief of Defense Forces of the Ugandan People Defense Force, and take urgent action to protect his right to life. 5th is our call that the authorities immediately propose amendments to the Ugandan People Defense Forces Act of 2005 as ordered by the Supreme Court of Uganda to align to its constitutional principles on due process. That is the independence, impartiality, right to appeal, etc., all those rights that falls under the right to due process, and clarifying the limited jurisdiction of military courts under the Constitution of Uganda and international human rights law. It is also our call to the Kenyan authority that they should first acknowledge that abductions and detentions have been committed in Kenya, potentially constituting crimes under international law, and should be promptly, thoroughly, impartially, and transparently investigated, and those suspected of responsibility be prosecuted. Second, that the Kenyan authorities should end the abductions and detentions in Kenya and commit to take effective measures to guarantee non-repetition of these offenses. It is therefore our call that as organization under making these statements, that we do call each and every person and invite every Kenyan and all persons of interest to join us in a march to the Ugandan High Commission in Nairobi and the National Assembly on 21st of February to present a petition for justice for Dr. Kiza Besigye, Haji Obeid Lutale, and Wakili Aaron Kiza, and all other persons who have been unlawfully detained by the Ugandan government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This statement is signed by 10 organizations, but as importantly, it's signed on behalf of all the health workers in Kenya. As we know, Dr. Kiza Besigye is not a doctoral student, he's actually a medical doctor. So all Kenyan doctors have come out in solidarity with him this morning. I think the other body that's important to recognize is the Law Society of Kenya, that is of course the home and the family of all advocates across the country. So we're going to invite, we'll circulate the statement, but let me take a minute to invite Maria Sahai Sarungi, who has been campaigning fearlessly against abductions over the last few weeks and years. And herself, as you know, was a survivor of an attempted abduction that was blocked. So I'm going to invite her to give a perspective from the Tanzanian side.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the most important...
I begin. 18 days have passed since the Supreme Court of Uganda ruled on 31st January that the trial of civilians before military courts in criminal cases is unconstitutional and that any such cases must be transferred to ordinary courts. Despite the Supreme Court decision and legal applications for the release of Kiza Besigye, Haji Obeid Lutale, lawyer Aaron Kiza, and others, Ugandan authorities have disregarded court orders and continue to arbitrarily deprive them of their liberty. Kiza Besigye's health has seriously deteriorated after nearly a week on hunger strike to protest his detention. I begin. 18 days have passed since the Supreme Court of Uganda ruled on 31st January that the trial of civilians before military courts in criminal cases is unconstitutional and that any such cases must be transferred to ordinary courts. Despite the Supreme Court decision and legal applications for the release of Kiza Besigye, Haji Obeid Lutale, lawyer Aaron Kiza, and others, Ugandan authorities have disregarded court orders and continue to arbitrarily deprive them of their liberty.